All right, so last week we planned our two sketches. So I have my two sketches right here. I'm gonna demonstrate with this sketch. So you'll see this one on my paper next to my watercolor. And then these are my two reference images. I think based on the color notes I made here, I am going with more of the colors from this second image. So those are my inspirations. So it's a good idea to have your reference images also accessible to you while you're sketching and painting. So the first thing I need to do, if you have tape, I recommend taping around the edge of your painting and attaching it to the surface that you're working on. If you don't have tape, what you can do is you can use your ruler and just draw about a 1/4 inch border all the way around each of your edges. Since I do have tape, I'm going to utilize that. Again, if you don't have tape, just create a border with your pencil. The nice thing about using tape is that it will also hold your paper down as we begin to add water, and it'll prevent it from buckling too much. So I like to add tape really around all of the edges. I like to start at the top and the bottom, and you can just tape it down directly to your desk. So I've got tape at the top and the bottom. Then I'm going to measure out and rip another piece of tape for my edge. And I'm trying to just have a very small border, again, about a 1/4 of an inch. We don't want to waste too much of the paper. We're using our smallest size of paper, so it's 6 inches by 9 inches. And then I have the rough side up. The rough side is the front. It's the side that's going to do better at absorbing that water. So we want to be painting on the rougher side of our watercolor paper.
I'm just clarifying, you want us to use the smallest piece of paper, right?
Yes, that is
Got it.
correct.
Thank
Yep.
you.
And thank you for clarifying. I always appreciate that. It's good to ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question because if you have a question, it's probably just I didn't do a good enough job explaining or reinforcing a part of a concept. So please, please always feel free to ask questions. All right, so I've got my paper tape down. Again, if you don't have tape, what you can do is you can basically draw a little border just like I did, and you'll just paint extra carefully. Now, when I want to begin sketching, I recommend having your sketchbook open near your watercolor so you can see what you drew. This was my other side of page of my sketchbook. Since I did it on the extra piece of paper and not in the sketchbook, I can just fold it in half and concentrate on one page or one of these for now. I am going to transfer some critical details with my pencil, but I want to draw them extra lightly. So even lighter than I think I need to, because since watercolor is a transparent painting medium, I will see all of these pencil lines when I'm finished. So I'm going to super lightly sketch a line for my horizon, really so lightly that the document camera actually can almost not even see it. Also extremely lightly, I'm going to sketch my buildings that I have right here. And this is just basically a visual cue for me to follow. So I know I want to not forget these things or where they are. And I can get this establish the scale as well. The last thing I might really lightly sketch are my mountains here. I'm not even going to sketch the trees. I don't think I'll just paint them in later. If they end up shifting a little bit, that's okay. All right, so I've got my mountains, I've got my horizon line, I've got my buildings. Now I am ready to paint. And I'm actually going to shift everything this way a little bit so that we can not have my paper in that shadow of the document camera. All right, so I've got my drawing here. It's all set up to paint. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to lay down large areas of wash. So I really want to focus on the sky, if that's a large area. These mountains are a pretty large area. This foreground right here is pretty significant. And since this area down here is a pond that's reflecting what's going on in the rest of the picture, I'm going to start by actually getting it wet. You can see I had a little bit of pink paint remaining on my paper or paintbrush because I hadn't washed it out all the way. That's okay since red is one of the colors I'll be using. So for this, I am using the wet and wet technique. Your techniques might vary, whichever technique you want to start with. So you want to look at your picture. I do recommend working from large areas to small areas. It's hard to do detail first and then go around it to add a large area of wash. So if you have large areas of wash, it's going to be best to do that first. I'm also going to go for the sky at the same time, since a lot of the colors that are in the sky are reflecting in the water. So I want to sort of have a similar color profile. All right, so we've got our water applied in the sky for wet and wet and in the ground for wet and wet. Now in the photo I'm referencing, there's a lot of pinks and purples and red. There's a noise, but I don't know what it is. And it seems like it's just in our room. We'll see if it happens again. I don't know what it was. So I've got a mixture of pink and purple here. I really should wash my brush in between each colors. If I got it mixed up though, I can go back with some water and scoop it out till it's clean. All right, so here's a pinkish purple magenta color. Maybe I'll just sort of apply it a bit randomly because again, down here is a reflection. Along one side of my picture, it's sort of a darker purple here. And then in the sky, I have some blue up top here and some pink sort of coming in. So if it mixes, that's okay. This is more of an expressive painting and we're really just getting used to the watercolor itself. So I don't expect perfection from anyone. Right now I'm starting out by covering large areas. We need more water here. And I'm using my largest brush as well for my large areas of wash. I'm using the palette of the paint to mix colors in. And here I'm sort of letting it mix on the paper. The video we watched on our last asynchronous class day talked about mixing colors on the paper instead of on the palette. So that's another experiment or technique you can experiment with incorporating into your artworks. You do want to be careful not to mix too many colors in one area, especially colors that are across each other on the color wheel, because then it can sometimes turn muddy. I'm going to bring a little blue into the lake area as well, because we've got a reflection of our colors going on here. So I've got two large areas of wash. I might want to think about if I want to apply any color to my mountains here at the same time. This mountain is further away right here, so it would be a really light color. So I'm maybe going to mix a really light purple. Begin to paint this mountain. Since the sky is still wet, I might end up with a very soft, blurry edge, but maybe I'm okay with that. And then maybe this mountain, I'll add some more blue. And then this time I'm going to paint around the buildings since I want to keep them white for now so I can add the color later. I knew the roof of the building will be painted, so that's why I was able to paint over it in the sunset. But for the base of the buildings, part of it, I might want them to be a lighter color. I really like this color a lot. And then once I paint this mountain, I think it might be a really good time to let my painting dry just a bit before I continue on. So right now this mountain is really similar in value to the other one. So that means the front mountain, which is closer, I would need to go and make a bit darker. Eventually. So again, this is all about practice and learning. I don't expect anyone's watercolors to look perfect. So this is just my very first layer. Right now it's super, super wet, so I might want to wait just a few minutes, 2 or 3, till it absorbs and dries a little bit before I go back and add more layers as I paint. What questions do you have at this point? The other thing I haven't yet added, I haven't added any of my trees or any of the reflections of the mountains in the water. I definitely still need to add those things, as well as the layers of brush here between the edge of the water and in front of these buildings. So I would want to add those as I continue to paint as well, but I'm going to wait till this first layer dries. So we're sort of working from the back of the picture, what's far away to what's closest to us, working from what's lightest to darkest, and working from large areas to small. So going from far away to close, lightest areas, and then adding darker layers on top, and starting with the biggest areas, working then towards the smaller areas.